KFT. This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. Last night, direct from the Oval Office, President Obama did his measured version of talking tough about the oil disaster in the Gulf, how BP should pay up, and how we should all wise up to clean energy. But nowadays, you don't need what Teddy Roosevelt called the bully pulpit to get your message out. All the web is a stage. So when video blogger I'm Just a Girl 776 decided to recommend the corporate death penalty for BP, she came out tougher than him.
Corporations exist because of something called a corporate charter. These charters are issued by state governments and are basically contracts stating that the business in question exists to serve the public good. Many corporations, however, do not exist to serve the public good. Citizens and government alike should be far less shy about revoking corporate charters when a business has become destructive to society. BP cut corners and did things wrong to save money, resulting in one of the worst environmental catastrophes that the U.S. or possibly even the world has ever seen. They've destroyed the lives of local residents down in the Gulf and poisoned the land, sea, and food supply for generations to come. Because of their lust for money, they continue to make decisions down in the Gulf that prove without a doubt that profits will always come ahead of people. Always. They should have their corporate charter revoked. BP should cease to exist as a corporation in the United States. We, the people, do have the power to do this. We always have.
I'm Just a Girl 776 calling for a BP's charter to be revoked. And it's not just her. There is a fledgling movement, including a Facebook page, devoted to that cause with 2,900 friends. While the government could, in theory, revoke a corporation's charter, however, it is rarely ever done. But in BP's case, the corporate death penalty may get meted out anyway by stockholders fearing fines and lawsuits. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see BP spring a fatal cash leak all by itself. And then, will BP be judged too big to fail and ironically get a government bailout? Dream on. Okay, besides this rant, what else is on tonight's program? We will see how the power of web video could make guys think twice before harassing women on the street. We will meet the master of web video who dominates the field of online education, and we'll visit the nerdiest dating site because it has the hottest data. Plus, of course, our online video pics, including an illustrated version of that commencement address which warns about sunscreen and taking youth for granted.
In 20 years, you look back at photos of yourself and recall in a way you can't grasp now how much possibility lay before you and how fabulous you really looked.
More of the sunscreen address later on. Nothing says summer's coming more than the aroma of copper tone in the park, except perhaps the seasonal increase of women getting harassed on the street. That is, men shouting catcalls, sexual come-ons, and worse. Recently, the Washington City paper asked one woman what was the worst street harassment she had to bear.
Oh, hold up, I'm sorry. The worst thing somebody yelled to me was, "Can I buy you for today? Just for today." That's what he said to me. "Can I buy you just for today?"
What did you say?
I was so shocked. I just looked at that man and shook my head and kept walking. Because these people crazy. I couldn't say nothing. Smart might shoot me.
So, is there any way for women to respond that doesn't backfire? Maybe, thanks to digital cameras. The website Hollaback, as in holler back, was created precisely to help women fight against street harassment by documenting it for all to see. One of their slogans is, "If you can't slap them, snap them." And now they've got sites all over the world and soon an iPhone app. Here to explain is Emily May, the executive director of Hollaback. And with us via Skype from Washington, D.C. is Amanda Hess. She writes a column called The Sexist for the Washington City paper. Welcome to both of you. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Emily, in that video, that woman actually expressed fear, right? She says, I didn't do what I was thinking of doing because I didn't want him to shoot me. And she was sort of kidding, but maybe sort of not. Is fear an impediment to speaking back?
You know, street harassment is scary, and that's what differentiates it from just some comments on the street, is that it's very, very scary. And when we founded Hollaback, it was because it was scary that we really wanted a response. We felt like when we walked on, we felt weak. When we would yell at guys, the situation would escalate, and the police didn't care. And so we launched Hollaback and put the cell phone camera and the blog together and gave women an empowered response to street harassment.
And how does that work exactly?
So how it works is that we encourage women to tell their stories on the site, and oftentimes we also receive pictures along with those stories. Now, it's a choice as to whether or not you feel safe or you feel comfortable submitting that picture, but the picture does help to tell and to really illustrate that story.
So there's a series on Hollaback called Why I Hollaback. Let's look at one example.
So last night I was in the city with a friend and we just finished seeing our friend's band play, and we were just stumbling around, you know, getting a place, looking for a place to eat, and we looked at a burger place and we didn't go in, we just looked at it from the window and we were just contemplating whether or not we wanted to go in there. And some jerk just walking past pushing a carton of, I don't know, drinks or something said to us, "Would you like some of my burgers, baby?" And I said, "Excuse me, will you please leave us alone? We're just looking for a place to eat." All he responded was, "Okay, have a nice evening." I really wanted to just tell the jerk off some more, but I don't know if he got the message that it's not okay to just harass someone who's trying to get on with their night or evening like any other normal human being, but it just really feels good afterwards not to be a doormat after they just, in a way, dehumanize you. And that's why I Hollaback.
That's Why I Hollaback. It's a series on the Hollaback website. Amanda, in D.C., I understand you write a column on gender called The Sexist, and that you recently founded a chapter of Hollaback, or you wrote about the new chapter?
I wrote about a new chapter that actually started up about a year ago, so it's doing pretty well at this point.
In D.C. Were you familiar with the video that we just played?
I had never seen that before, but I had seen part of the other series of just women talking about their experiences.
And yet you wrote recently about a certain hesitation that you see among women to take part in this kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I did speak with the founders of the DC branch of Hollaback, and one of the things they found was that women were more reluctant to post photos in DC than they were on the New York City blog. And one of the reasons that they suggested that that was the case is because, you know, it is scary to talk back, and it's not just scary because you're worried about what the perpetrator might do to you if he sees you, you know, posting his picture on the internet, but you're also scared about what your community might say about you. They might say you're overreacting, or that you shouldn't post strangers' photos online, or that, you know, you shouldn't name names and stuff like that. And those social pressures, I think, are a lot more intense in smaller communities. And DC is not a tiny little town, but it is a lot smaller than New York City. So.
Supposed to be the capital of freedom of speech, I thought.
Right, but it can be conservative sometimes.
Yeah, I noticed that. Emily, do you think there's a difference between Washington and New York, or New York and smaller places in general, which is what Amanda's suggesting?
Yeah, you know, I really think it's a personal decision, and I think it has a little bit to do with differences in branding between the New York City and the DC site, as Amanda pointed out in her argument as well, in her article as well. You know, and street harassment is universally scary, but how women choose to respond to it is very personal. But the important thing is that women are responding to it, and we really want women to have that opportunity.
What do you really want people to say? What actually works? I mean, I could imagine women coming away from the experience feeling better, or maybe feeling worse.
After being street harassed?
Well, after posting.
After posting.
Obviously, after being harassed, obviously.
Right.
But after posting, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't think you come out feeling worse. I have to say, I've Hollabacked quite a lot in the past 5 years, and it is an incredibly empowering response. It just feels good. It feels good to have a response.
You think, Amanda, that it feels good like revenge, or in some other way maybe?
Yeah, I don't really, I mean, I've done it before just on my personal blog, just, you know, complaining about people who will talk to me on the street and say sexual things. And it's not really revenge because, you know, I can never trace down that guy and tell him how I feel. But it is really nice to see other comments coming in from people who've had the same thing happen to them and who can tell you that it's not you, it's the harasser.
There is a new video game out called Hey Baby that allows players to get revenge to virtually, I stress virtually, gun down their harassers. Yes, gun them down. Let's take a look.
Come on, smile for me.
God bless you.
Wow. You shouldn't even mind that coming.
I love you.
Now, Emily, that's not affiliated with Hollaback,
No,
right?
absolutely not.
How do you feel about that?
The first time I played the game, I loaded it, and I couldn't, it's been a while since I've played first-person shooter games. I don't know if I've ever spent more than 5 minutes playing a first-person shooter game, but I loaded it and I couldn't figure out how to get my gun to work. And it almost feels like in your ear you hear the words, "Hey baby, I like your bounce." And I couldn't figure out how to make it work, and so he repeated it, "Hey baby, I like your bounce." And it felt to me like the same exact experience of being street harassed and being out on the streets. And that experience was very, very jarring for me. And I would say that the game is a lot more of a social commentary than it is an actual game, and that its practical function is a lot more to educate people about what street harassment feels like than it is to actually get revenge.
Is it, or to get something out of your system, a virtual revenge? Amanda, you wrote, I think, unflatteringly about this game, right?
I had a similar experience when I played the game that, I did figure out how to make the gun work, but no matter how many guys you gun down, there's still 5 creeps around the corner coming over to try to, get you to have sex with them. And so as someone who has experienced street harassment, I didn't find that particularly therapeutic, but I would suggest, that maybe men try and play the game to have that experience. Personally, I don't really want to have that experience too much more virtually.
So let's see, if you had virtually gunned down the men who harassed you and there weren't 5 other men coming up to take their place, that would have felt better?
I'm not sure it would be a very interesting game if that were true, but no, I mean, I don't get much out of the virtual gunning down. I do get more out of the hollering back and having other women talking with me about it.
Yeah, it almost seems like Hollaback, which obviously has a political and social agenda to actually try to reduce this, is motivated differently than that game. I mean, this is just a first impression, but the game seems like it actually is more personal than political.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think the really powerful thing about Hollaback is it does cross that personal and political divide, right? On a personal level, we give women an empowering response. On a political level, the sum total of all of these responses really shows that street harassment is at an epidemic proportion. We have 8 sites internationally. We just launched in London and Hong Kong. Street harassment's not just a New York or a DC thing. It's not even just a city thing. Street harassment's been around since the advent of streets, and this is the first time that we've really started talking about it. It's an incredible time in history.
And it's not just about hollering back, it's also about sometimes using a video camera or a still camera to take a snap of the guy who's harassing you and post it online, right? Exactly.
We also accept video submissions, which is pretty incredible, and we encourage people to take all kinds of video or picture submissions. It doesn't just have to be of the guy. It could be the street scene, or it could even be your shoes. Whatever tells that story to you.
What about the public humiliation? Have you had guys who've gotten in touch with you or the organization after seeing themselves up there and said, take it down, please. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I'm so humiliated, or maybe something more threatening than that?
No, you know, in 5 years of running this, we have never had anyone contact us and say,
really?
That's me.
Really? How many guys do you think are up there?
Over 1,000 at this point.
Over 1,000, and
yeah.
Nobody's ever gotten in touch with you?
Yeah, but I would say that there's over 1,000 guys up there, but you can't all distinguish exactly what they look like. And that's really, you know, I think that's one of the big misconceptions about Hollaback, is that it's about really like a public tar and feathering of these men. No, it's not.
Would that be a bad thing?
You know, it's not a terrible thing, and we're certainly not 100% opposed to it, but it's not the point of the site. The point of the site is really to show the extent to which these crimes are at epidemic proportions, and the point of the images is to bring some you know, to tell that story and to bring some validity to the issue, because we as a society are really programmed to look at stories that women are telling about, you know, violence that they've experienced as simply not true.
Amanda, what do you think about outing people like this?
I think it's just fine. You know, I think what is actually going to really work to change the situation is for people to talk to their friends about it. I'm not sure just humiliating someone is really going to get to them, but the good news is that most people don't sexually harass other people on the street. But most of us probably know someone, you know, in our extended social circle who does that.
Well, things get passed around online, as we know. I'm surprised we haven't heard stories of some of these shots or videos winding up on somebody's Facebook page, and then all their friends know that they did it. That would be pretty effective, I would think.
You know, if the friends are open to speaking out about it, you know, then that would be great. I think a lot of times what we see is not everyone is a street harasser, but most people don't say much about it. And so that's the real problem right now.
Do you think, Amanda, that Hollaback exists in a larger context of greater awareness about street harassment? Or is this just, you know, human nature, male nature, in a way that you're never really going to change?
You know, I wouldn't say that Hollaback exists in a larger context of awareness, because I think Hollaback has single-handedly, you know, made people aware of this. It's not human nature. We can change this, you know, it's our society. And so Hollaback is doing a great service to everyone who gets catcalled when they get off the bus or walk down the street or go to work. And
now, Emily, there's an iPhone app.
And there is an iPhone app. You know, one of the things that we found was that when women were street harassed, they were really oftentimes harnessing their inner strength to immediately try and pretend like it didn't happen. And that's effective maybe if you're harassed once a year, but when you're harassed weekly or monthly, it really starts to build up and have an effect. And so with the iPhone app, we wanted to give people a real-time response to street harassment. And so now, when you're street harassed, starting in July, you'll be able to use this iPhone app to Hollaback, and we're going to have data on where it happens, we're going to map it, and we're going to have data on exactly what's happening and what's going on, and we're going to use it to build a very powerful case that street harassment is not okay.
You're going to lay construction sites over the map, right? Or is that an unfair stereotype? It's men of all socioeconomic groups.
It is. It's, you know, like all forms of violence against women, it's not just one race, it's not just one culture, it's not just one class. Although I would like to say that I think it would be very interesting to look at violence against women laid across, that crimes that are reported laid across this map, because I think that street harassment is a gateway crime. I think that it creates a culture that makes violence against women okay. And we have to end street harassment if we're going to have a hope of ending these other crimes as well.
Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Brian Lehrer Live. Here are this week's online video picks. Are you an artist with no health insurance? While you're waiting for President Obama's health care reforms to kick in, there's one hospital in Brooklyn, Woodhull Medical Center, that will barter with you.
So the Artist Access Program is a way for anybody who's making their living through creative means, artists, dancers, musicians, actors, they can bring their talent into the hospital and then receive credits for that and then exchange those credits for health care. There's lots of different ways for musicians and performance-based dancers as well to perform for for both patients and staff. The pianist who you're going to speak to, Emil, he has played in two different settings. He's played at a chemical dependency graduation, so he's played music for the background of that ceremony. And he's also played at a staff relaxation lunch, so the staff were able to eat their lunch in the solarium and listen to him play.
Do you have health insurance?
No, I don't have health insurance because I'm a freelance musician and was not able to get health insurance. So this program is really exceptional. Actually, I got to use it very recently. I was in a bike accident and came to the emergency room here because I knew that I was in the Artist Access program, and it worked out. It worked out well. They took care of me, and I don't have a gigantic debt. I was able.
Great. That Woodhull Hospital report from walletpop.com. Video pick number 2, at last, some deep insight into how the BP oil spill has been handled from the start at the corporate and scientific levels. This from UCBcomedy.com.
According to the charts, this is the best plan of action.
Yeah, great. Don't worry about it. It's a small spill on a very large table.
Sir, I think we are underestimating just how much coffee was spilled.
Yeah, that's a lot of coffee.
Well, we better hurry up because it's almost reached my laptop.
Calm down, calm down. Boom.
It's also going to destroy all the fish.
Oh boy. Okay. Boom. Look at that.
My God, it's encroaching on my map of Louisiana.
Okay. Okay. Look. Oh no. Fish.
Laptop.
Okay.
Map.
Okay. I'm sorry. Look. Oh no. Fish.
Laptop.
Okay.
Wait. I've got a brilliant idea.
Oh. Okay. Jones, you gotta hurry up. I think the public is getting suspicious. Look.
All set. Damn. Didn't work.
Oh my God, we are really screwed now. Look, garbage will fall into the coffee cups, stopping further spillage.
Now there's just coffee and garbage.
Wait, I've got an idea. Damn, I really thought that would work.
Well, maybe it doesn't work right away. Let's observe it for 3 hours and then reassess it.
Okay. We just wasted 3 hours. Damn it.
That from the Upright Citizens Brigade. Do you know what the soccer acronym FIFA stands for? It's the Federation International Football Association. Well, it sounds better in French. Anyway, the World Championship that they organize, being played now, has gotten more international each time and is now truly the World Cup. The Economist magazine illustrates this nicely in video pick number 3.
For many years, football was a game of two continents. Latin America, where the game is an obsession, has hosted 6 World Cup finals. 10 have been held in Europe, the cradle of football and the place where most of the world's best players ply their trade at club level. But the game's growing global appeal encouraged FIFA, world football's governing body, to award the finals to the United States in 1994, to South Korea and Japan jointly in 2002, and now to South Africa. The shifting balance of power has forced FIFA to expand the finals to admit more teams from the game's emerging markets. In 1986, 24 national teams contested the finals, with just 2 from Africa and 2 from Asia. 32 teams will congregate in South Africa, with 6 from the home continent taking part and 3 from Asia. Television viewing figures show the rapid globalization of football. The tournament in Mexico in 1986 attracted a cumulative audience of some 13.5 billion, according to FIFA. That nearly doubled to over 26 billion in 2006. Most of the additional viewers came from Africa and Asia. Africans don't just watch more football, they export players by the coachload. Of the 345 footballers in the 2010 Africa Cup of Nations, 205 played outside Africa, mainly for European clubs. Only Latin America sends as many players from its shores. If African football is a winner, the host should be too. By some estimates, the World Cup will boost South Africa's GDP by 0.5 percentage point in 2010.
Truly the World Cup. That reminds me, the term World Series really is off base. Too bad that America's Cup is already taken by sailing. Video pick number 4. If the head of the MTA, Jay Walder, gets his way, we will soon replace the MetroCard swipe with a MasterCard tap. It's probably a good idea, unless there's some downside that this promotional video made by MasterCard, which stands to profit, isn't telling us about.
We're starting off by doing it on the Lexington Avenue line, and we're also doing it on 8 bus routes, mainly that intersect the Lexington Avenue line.
We now create a seamless way for our customers to move through this region.
Many people in New York City have cards already that can be used to simply tap and go when they're making purchases. They can now use those same cards to just tap at the subway turnstile or tap when they get on the bus. And it also gives you a statement at the end of each month that shows you the rides you've been making and allows you to understand what you're spending on the commuting expense.
The ability for our customers to not only access our facility, but on the New York side, the MTA, and in New Jersey Transit, is just a win-win for all of us.
People are going to look at this and say, why didn't I have this sooner? It's going to make their life easier, it's going to be simple, it's going to be quick, it's going to be convenient.
When we put Easy Pass in on the toll roads in this state, it changed the whole view of what a commute is. And I think the Pay Pass is going to do exactly the same thing.
I got it. You simply tap and go to speed things up on mass transit. Great. But what about speeding up the walk to the bus or subway, especially this time of year when sidewalks are clogged with tourists? Oh, they are fixing that too?
Excuse me, sir. New York City resident? No? Oh, can you go in the tourist lane?
Tourist lane, please.
So you can take pictures and go as slow as you walk?
Just stay on the right-hand side.
New Yorker?
Yeah.
New York City? Yeah, let's go to the New Yorker lane. Trying to speed it up. You can live your rapid lifestyle. Excuse me, ma'am, if you're going to just stand, can you stand in the tourist lane? That's for slow people. Thanks. You look like an artsy guy. You're definitely from New York City, right? Yep, stay in the New Yorker lane. Excuse me, sir.
Transportation, sir. If you're a tourist, please stay on the left-hand side. We're trying to increase traffic flow right now.
I walk pretty fast, though. No, it doesn't matter. Statistically, you walk slow.
And what if you want to
Statistically, you're slow. New York City resident? Stay to your right. You're quick. You're a New York City resident, definitely.
Yeah, you're
Keep it up. Keep it pep in the step.
You know how it is.
A New York City resident, they walk on average 12 miles per hour.
Oh my God.
Which is
No, that's crap.
4 times.
You'd be running if they were doing 12. Basically.
They basically are running. It's like a quick
people that sprint, and then there's a bunch of people that walk at regular rates.
Yeah.
So you average it out, 12 miles per hour.
Yeah. Okay. So you're definitely, I can tell by your uncertainty, you're definitely a tourist, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. No, don't feel threatened. I don't have a gun today. You just, when you get down here, just go into the tourist lane. Yeah, so you can go slow, take pictures, go to sleep, whatever tourists do.
Just stay to the left-hand side, that's all.
And that from Improv Everywhere. And those are this week's online video picks. It's Brian Lehrer Live. For decades, futurists have been predicting that education would be revolutionized by computers and the internet. First, we heard lots about putting libraries online, then computers in the classroom, then universities like MIT offering free courseware. But nobody figured on a young man named Salman Kahn. His site teaches math, science, history, and more to hundreds of thousands worldwide, and it's all free.
The Khan Academy is most known for what's now about 1,000 videos on YouTube. It starts literally at 1 + 1 = 2, and it goes all the way up to the college level, calculus and physics. Everything is in these very short, encapsulated videos, one concept at a time. My cousin Nadia was visiting me from New Orleans when I was in Boston, and she was having trouble with math. She was in 6th grade at the time. I agreed to do this remote tutoring with her, so I started putting up videos on YouTube, and before I knew it, random people all over the world started watching them and sending me letters and testimonials, and I started getting excited about it, and I just kept going.
I think I've learned more about math in the past 3 weeks than I had in all 4 years of my high school studies.
When you watch them, you just comprehend everything, you just get it.
I ended up passing a whole bunch of tests from his videos.
One thing that kind of shocked me, I get a lot of letters from the Middle East, I get a lot of letters from Latin America, Ethiopia, Uganda. It's really reached far more students than I could have ever imagined. Right now there are about 1,000 videos. I started recording about 3 years ago. Now I'm doing it full time. I'm hoping to be able to put out a couple hundred videos a year. I see a world where literally anyone with access to a computer and the internet will be able to go to the Khan Academy and get a world-class education.
Impressive, right? So let's get to know the man behind this virtual global classroom. Joining us live via Skype from Mountain View, California, Khan Academy founder, Salman Kahn. Hey, Salman, hello from New York. Thanks for doing this with us.
Hi, Brian. Great to be here.
I gather you believe you're a better teacher on video than in person. Is that correct?
That's what my cousins first told me when I put up the very first YouTube video. I viewed it as a bit of a backhanded compliment, but I think what they were saying, I was doing these remote tutoring sessions, these virtual sessions with them, and I think what they liked about the YouTube version of me as opposed to the live version of me is that they didn't have the stress of feeling like their cousin in Boston was judging them, or that they had to answer questions immediately, or fear of feeling or looking stupid to the instructor, and that they could watch and pause and repeat whenever they wanted to.
1,500 videos, 14 million views. What's the genesis of this, Salman?
Just like I just said, it started with me tutoring my cousins remotely. They were in New Orleans, I was in Boston, and it worked out really well for them when I had 1 or 2 or 3 that I was tutoring, but they started doing well, so I wanted to tutor more and more. I had a day job. I was an analyst at a hedge fund at a time, and the logistics got difficult, and I thought, well, it at least would be nice. Maybe I could scale myself up a little bit if I made some YouTube videos. And as you just mentioned, their initial feedback, I thought it would be a nice to have supplement, something that they could use to review concepts. It wouldn't be as good as our live interactions, but the first feedback I heard from them was that it was actually better.
Let's see an example of you teaching. This in particular is you teaching, of all things, differential equations.
And what's interesting here, and how this is a departure from what we've learned before about just regular equations. Let me write down a regular equation just to remind you what they look like. So a regular equation, if we had one variable, would look something like this. I don't know, x squared plus, I don't know, the cosine of x is equal to the square root of x. I just made that up. Here the solution is a number, or sometimes it's a set of numbers. Sometimes there's more than one, right? If you have a polynomial, you could have more than one values of x that satisfy this equation. Here, for a differential equation, the solution is a function. Our goal is to figure out what function of x, and here I wrote f of x explicitly, but what function of x explicitly satisfies this relationship or this equation. So let me show you what I mean by that. And I have my differential equations book from college, so I'm going to use that as we go. So.
Oh, that high school math feeling, there it is.
But well, well beyond high school math.
I guess. How do you approach, I mean, you were, okay, you came out of hedge funds, whatever. Were you an expert in differential equations?
An expert's kind of a loaded word, especially when you think about things in kind of academic topics. I'm not a cutting-edge researcher at the leading edge of differential equations. I have not contributed to the field of differential equations, but I am someone who loved math. I was into math in high school, college. I was a math major, but I teach things outside of my credentialed areas as well. But the way I see it, as long as someone has, I think what I bring to the table is being able to connect the intuition behind a lot of concepts and be able to communicate it, I say in a way that I wish it was delivered to me the first time. So that's really what I'm trying to do.
And you do all of these yourself. All 1,500 videos in every subject is you.
It's all me. I joke I'm the faculty of the Khan Academy.
Are there subjects that are harder for you to do well?
I like challenging myself because when I started doing this, a lot of people said, okay, you've done some algebra, can you do calculus? And once you do calculus, can you do chemistry? And once you do chemistry, can you do the humanities? So I always like pushing the boundaries. And I just naturally like learning different topics. I would say, I wouldn't say harder is the word, but I think it requires more prep on my part to do something like the French Revolution than it does to do, say, the differential equations videos.
Do you have a business model? You give these away for free, right?
Yeah, the decision was made actually before I even quit my job to make this a not-for-profit entity, make sure that it stays focused on its goal, which is to give education away for free. The way I'm paying my bills, well, I was living off of savings when I quit my job in September of 2009. And until recently, I was essentially just living off of savings. But very recently, we've gotten enough donations to support a small salary for me and give us a bit of a runway. And hopefully we'll get more.
Is the paid university concept an old-fashioned concept as far as you're concerned, or is this just an alternative for a very select group of people?
Well, it's definitely an alternative. I don't think it's for an alternative for a select group of people. I think it's you know, when you look at the user base, there's people who are gifted students who want to race ahead. There's a lot of college students at all different skill levels. There are homeschoolers using it. There are retirees using it. So I would say it's a fairly broad audience. And it's at minimum it's at minimum kind of a nice to have. In terms of the college experience, I think there's things the college is doing right. I think it's nice to go to a campus that's well manicured and have a nice experience there. But I think this does challenge some of the notions of why do we have these 300-person lectures at some universities, actually all universities, you have these 300-person lectures when you can get on-demand instruction at your own pace or when you want it. You don't have to take notes. It's always there for you.
Who are your users primarily? I realize it's a diverse group, but do you find certain kinds of people, certain groups of people are really, you know, hitting on your stuff for certain uses in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, the core users are who you would expect. It's, I would say, high school and college students, mainly in the U.S., mainly in North America. I'd say about 80% North America, 20% rest of the world. But there's
for what? For what? As kind of an online, you know, Spark Notes or some other reason?
Yeah, I think there are students who are stuck in a math class. Either they missed some days, they zoned out through a couple of lectures, or they don't connect with the professor they have, and they use this either as a supplement or to catch up, or really as their primary source of understanding the concepts. I get a lot of letters from people who, you know, they don't use the textbook anymore to learn the concepts. A few people who don't show up at lecture anymore.
But go ahead, that's one core group.
Yeah, and the others, you know, the homeschoolers love it. I didn't think about it at first, but it's kind of an obvious group that would appreciate this type of thing, both for the students directly and for the teachers, for the parents. I've actually gotten some groups are using it for teacher training, which is, I mean, it's a compliment. And it is actually being used in the classroom. I get letters from teachers who are one, assigning the lectures for homework. Instead of reading, and some teachers are showing it in the classroom and then using that as a starting point for discussion.
And you're obviously very organized about how you do this. We're going to show another video, a little bit of you talking about how some of the math and science videos are organized.
Sure.
And then when you think about the sciences, we have physics. And the physics playlist is mainly, I call them applied algebra problems. So you might want to watch physics right around after you finish algebra. There's only a few videos that require calculus. I'll eventually make an entire playlist on calculus-based physics. Most of this is just algebra-based physics. So you're ready to go if you have a good, solid understanding of algebra. And then the other sciences, the chemistry, it'd be nice to have algebra out of the way. Pre-algebra is probably enough for most of it. Pre-algebra is probably enough for most of it, but algebra, if you have your algebra out of the way, then you're going to have no trouble at all with the chemistry playlist. Chemistry, and then biology does deal with a little bit of probability and things like that, so it wouldn't hurt, but that doesn't even require too much mathematics, or at least the mathematics that I've diagrammed here. We could put biology here. I guess the big takeaway is that algebra is really important for pretty much anything you want to do. There's some genetics problems that require some basic level and some population genetics problems that have some biology in it. And then all the finance and economics, I think it assumes a base level of algebraic understanding. So the things on banking, you don't have to have a super advanced. If you just
So that's, as I said, very organized. I guess that's the same kind of thing that any university would do as they're figuring out what's a prerequisite for what, right?
Right. No, that's the general idea. And actually, this video was made a byproduct of, there's so much content on the site now that I got a lot of requests from people who just we're kind of lost. What do I view after what? And the one area where I think this diverges from the university model, the university model is very, I mean, that diagram was kind of class-based, but I think what's here, it's a lot more granular, so you can kind of go straight to the prerequisite, the concept-based prerequisites as opposed to an entire class.
Are you interested in trying to get accredited, or is that not a goal?
It's a long-term goal maybe to have some type of direct accreditation. I mean, I can imagine a world we actually have a software piece where we give people exercises and things like that. And at the end of the day, 10 years in the future, it might be a lot more informative to an employer or university as opposed to saying you have a 3.9 GPA to actually give someone the data of all of the work that you've done. But in the short term, maybe the next year or two, I do see a reality where we can tell people, look, if you've understood all of these concepts, you are now ready to go take the GED and you're likely to pass it. Or if you take the SAT, because of the exercises you've done, we have this level of confidence that you will get an X on the SAT. So we can view the Khan Academy as kind of your coach, and then you get your external credential from some other source.
I didn't see you in any of the videos that we screened. Do your students ever see you at a smartboard or with an overhead projector or anything like that in these videos?
No, and the form factor started off out of me just not having a video camera. So, but then I got a lot of feedback that this form factor actually works for a lot of people. Even though now I probably could get a video camera and go to a whiteboard, but people say that it feels a lot more intimate. It's not the instructor's face isn't a distraction. It's kind of like they feel like I'm the voice. I'm either sitting next to them and tutoring them, or they feel like I'm actually inside of their brain talking to them. So it's I think I'll just stick with that. It's actually funny because I've gotten letters from people who imagine me in completely different ways than I might be, and they kind of project their own impressions onto me, which is kind of a neat artifact of this form factor. You said that one of your goals is to teach the way you always wanted to be taught. Can you put that into words? Yeah, I think it's and I'm finding this out more and more the more concepts I do, that there's a lot of intuitive connections between a lot of subjects that I think the 1,000-page textbooks and then, to some degree, the bureaucracies at the standards making organizations, they kind of chop them up to a level that you lose all of the intuition, you lose all of the cross-subject interactions. And for me, what made math fun, what made science fun, is to really explore things and see how different concepts were connected and what a formula is actually saying about the universe. And so I think people who watch the Khan Academy, they really find, like, I'm not just throwing formulas at you. I give you an intuition for what the formula is saying, and I also tell you what it's saying about the universe generally, what are its implications, and also how did we get that formula. I don't just say memorize it and apply it. And I think when you start learning that way, one, it's a lot more fun, because we all actually do want to learn about the universe, and it actually builds a really, really strong foundation when you learn more advanced topics. Which are your most popular videos? Introduction to Trigonometry is probably that or Introduction to Calculus. Why? Those are probably the two most popular videos. Why? Well, well, I think both people take those courses. Both people are at the same time kind of intimidated by those courses. And I think when you watch those first two videos, the Introduction to Calculus is an interesting one, because I've had letters from people who've taken calculus and who got A's in calculus, and then they watch that video and they say, oh, I finally understand what calculus is about. Like, what's it even good for? So there's that, and I think Introduction to Trigonometry is just a huge pain point for a lot of students, and so a lot of them kind of end up on YouTube looking for help. So what's the future for you? Is it collaboration with others like you, if there are any others like you, to continue to grow, or something else? I'm very open to it, and when I started off, when I only had 100 videos, I thought that was the road I would take, that I would find a team of other people like me, and we would just collectively do it. Open to it, but I've kind of committed myself that I enjoy doing it, so I've done 1,500 videos, for over 4 years, and most of those 4 years I was working a day job. I've done about 600 since I've quit my job in September, so I'm fairly confident that I could tackle a big chunk of it, but I'm sure other people will kind of join in. But then augment it with software and then a kind of a community built around the 200,000 people using the site right now to really turn it into a virtual school. Hey, Salman, great stuff. Thanks for coming on. Great, thank you. Thank you. Coming up, love online. The data doesn't lie. This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues.
Fudgy nut bars. How many trees in the cookie 4, 5, 6, 7.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Go, Dad. Go, Dad.
Take time to be a dad today.
Up here. What are you doing?
I'm not gonna lie. Definitely not easy.
Hey, whoa.
Just gotta get through the day.
How do you stop it?
Being used to doing something with a cigarette makes it hard doing it without one. If I can relearn to get through my workday without cigarettes, I can relearn anything without cigarettes.
Relearn life without cigarettes. Free at becomeanex.org. A new way to think about quitting.
Did you know that there are 8 national parks in New York City? There are also 8 parking spaces in New York City. But that's something else. New York City has Federal Hall, where George Washington became our first president, the Statue of Liberty, and Gateway with beautiful beaches and protected wildlife. New York City has a range of national parks you won't find anywhere else. Because you cannot move a national park. It's a park. Even if you wanted to get it out of here, you couldn't. America's spirit lives in our national parks.
This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. It's spring, when a young man and woman's fancy turns to love. So we thought we would investigate one of the ways to find romance in our wired age, online dating. But specifically, we're going to learn about the findings of what's probably the nerdiest blog about dating out there. It's called OKTrends, and it's part of the dating site OkCupid. OKTrends tracks and analyzes user data to investigate just what's going on in the world of online dating. This blog knows what kind of picture you shouldn't post, what not to say, and why declaring atheism might be an advantage. Here to tell us about the blog and what numbers can teach us about finding love is Christian Rudder, the co-founder and editorial director of OkCupid. Hi.
Hello.
Atheism, I'll start there.
Oh, God. That was from a piece about what words you should and shouldn't say in messages to people, first contacts, when you first write them. Basically, your like first foot in the door or whatever.
Right, and maybe you should say how OkCupid works compared to other sites.
Oh, okay. Well, OkCupid is free, for one thing. That's like our biggest difference. And not just like free to join, but free to do everything. So, and we also take a real statistical and mathematical, analytical approach to putting people together. Part of that is because, and this is another reason that we started the blog, is because we're free, we don't have a lot of money sitting around to spend on TV ads or billboards or like celebrity spokesmen or whatever. So how we market ourselves is by making the site so awesome that your friends have to talk about it. Or you know, you have to tell your friends.
So social
like,
networking.
Exactly. Yeah, word of mouth.
Okay, so the first myth you bust
yeah.
Is it's better to smile.
Yes. I mean, that is true as long as you're smiling into the camera. If you look askance or something, I think the viewer often wonders what you're smiling at. Is it someone else? So there's also, I guess, what we ended up doing was looking at both smiling and then the like flirty face that people make, which is like kind of like women do it in MySpace, I don't know, called duck face also, I don't know. But it turns out, I'm sorry, I contradict myself. Duck face is better to make, as long as you're looking into the camera. Again, you always have to look into the camera. So.
And we have, here's some data from your site, right? What are we looking at?
There it is. Well, we're looking at a breakdown of what men and women do in their profile pictures.
This is what they do as
this
opposed
is what they
to
do.
what they should do.
Right, yeah, as opposed to what is best, yes.
So men are less likely to smile than women, correct?
Yes. That is definitely true, yeah. Men like to look stone cold and tough, I think.
And does your data tell you which is more likely to get a response from somebody?
It does. I don't have it memorized, so I have to look at these graphs with you.
Okay.
I do a lot of this stuff.
Right. Here, well, I've got it in front of me.
Oh, that's
How
very
often
helpful.
people smile in their profile pictures? Men smile 37% of the time.
Yeah.
Don't smile 61% of the time. Flirty face just 2%.
Yeah.
Women flirty flirty face 9%. They do smile 56% of the time.
Yeah.
So it's almost the mirror image of men.
Yes.
Women smile much more than they don't smile. So here's the effect of a woman's facial attitude.
Yes, and as you can see, flirty face is the best in terms of bringing in new contacts from men. And smiling is a somewhat close second. And in both, not smiling is pretty terrible. And if you don't make eye contact, it's important that you at least smile, because if you're flirting off to the side and then also not making eye contact with the camera, I think that sends the wrong message. In
Now the effect of a man's facial attitude. Looks like nothing works.
That in general is true for men online. But, well, you know, not smiling off camera works best by far. I think if you are, you know, not smiling and staring down the camera, I think that intimidates a lot of people. So that's not doing very well.
How about humble face for men?
Not looking
like,
you're going to have to make that
not
face for
looking
me.
like, well, I don't know, but not looking like the arrogant, know-it-all alpha male?
I totally understand what you're saying, and we didn't track that, unfortunately. Maybe next time. We
You
did
have,
find
you have humble face right now.
I have probably a scared face. I don't know if that works. But we did actually find, just to speak to the kind of men's humility and first messages, like we analyzed what words you should and shouldn't use, and we did find that it's very effective for men to be self-effacing in their messages to women.
Yeah, that's where you, all joking aside, that's where you track humility.
Yes, exactly. And if I can just illustrate, like, it was really interesting to see the dichotomy of the word pretty, which can be obviously an adjective. In adjective form, it's a compliment, like a physical compliment, like you have pretty eyes, you're pretty, like that kind of thing. But as an adverb, it's self-effacing, like I'm pretty good. It modifies the word that comes next. And we found that as an adverb, it was very effective, and as an adjective, as a physical compliment, as an assertive word, it was very ineffective.
Right. So back to your post on the 4 myths about profile pictures.
Yes.
And the next myth, we talked about how it's better to smile as a myth. The next myth was that guys should keep their shirts on, but in fact you found that shirtless guys actually did very well. We might even have a chart for that. Do we have that chart?
I hope so.
Let's see. Well, there it is.
Yep. Yeah.
Popular male photo contest. Contexts.
Yeah,
right, of course.
Yeah.
And?
Yeah, it turns out, you know, we actually ended up looking into this specific thing, men without their shirts, just because a journalist suggested it to us that she was disgusted by all the men without their shirts on. But we were totally prepared for it, those kinds of pictures to do really poorly. But it turns out that if you've got it, flaunt it is kind of a viable strategy. I think it's kind of like a audience segmentation thing, you know, like many people are turned off by the picture of your torso, but there are some who aren't, and they will definitely message you if you have that picture. So. And
you discovered that physical compliments are not a good idea.
Yes, but when men are sending messages to women, yeah, physical, like writing physical compliments aren't good. But keep in mind that what we were just looking at, that graph, is pictures men post getting contacts in from women.
Let's sneak in one more chart. We're almost out of time, but this is a serious one on how race affects the messages you get. Give us a quick overview of what you learned. There it is.
We learned that black women respond the most to messages, to incoming messages from all races across the board. And then the inverse is true. Black women get the fewest replies from all races across the board.
Theory as to why?
You know, I don't want to speculate. I mean, people are racist, I guess. I don't know. You know, like that's the easy way to put it. You know, I can't make a like armchair psychology thing. I try to just tell people what's happening.
You're a number cruncher, not a sociologist.
I mean, we have our theories, but you know.
All right, now, folks, you have to start this conversation at home now. Black men get more responses proportionally than black women.
Yes, definitely.
All right. We're out of time. 5 seconds. Love by the numbers? We've taken all the romance out, haven't we?
I don't think so at all. That's how you know how to make the best decisions.
Thank you. Good luck. Finally tonight, it's graduation season with that rarely profound institution known as the commencement address. But now seen more than 4 million times on YouTube, here's an excerpt from a commencement address that, as far as I know, has never actually been given at a graduation. Written by Chicago newspaper columnist Mary Schmick as a fantasy of a speech she would like to give, it has come to be known as the sunscreen speech.
Ladies and gentlemen of the class of '99, wear sunscreen. If I could offer you only one tip for the future, sunscreen would be it. The long-term benefits of sunscreen have been proved by scientists, whereas the rest of my advice has no basis more reliable than my own meandering experience. I will dispense this advice now. Enjoy the power and beauty of your youth. Oh, never mind. You will not understand the power and beauty of your youth until they've faded. But trust me, in 20 years, you'll look back at photos of yourself and recall in a way you can't grasp now how much possibility lay before you and how fabulous you really looked. You are not as fat as you imagine. Don't worry about the future, or worry, but know that worrying is as effective as trying to solve an algebra equation by chewing bubblegum. The real troubles in your life are apt to be things that never crossed your worried mind, the kind that blindsides you at 4 p.m. on some idle Tuesday. Do one thing every day that scares you. Sing. Don't be reckless with other people's hearts. Don't put up with people who are reckless with yours. Floss. Don't waste your time on jealousy. Sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind. The race is long, and in the end, it's only with yourself.
That excerpt from a version of the sunscreen speech posted by Maxi Mooch. You know, some of you may remember when it first came out in 1997, someone perpetrated an online hoax spreading the word that Kurt Vonnegut had delivered the speech at commencement at MIT. Anyone remember that? It was never true, but it launched the speech on the path to internet immortality. And that's it for this week's show. We're here live Wednesday nights at 7:30 or anytime online at brianlehrer.tv. Next week, Manhattan DA Cy Vance. And tune into my daily radio show, 10 a.m. on WNYC Radio. Tomorrow morning, guest host Jamie Floyd talks about no-fault divorce, possibly coming to New York. Crunch those numbers. That's 10 a.m. on WNYC, 93.9 FM, and AM 820. Have a great night.